What's up, everyone? It's the 21st of January, 2025. Today is new President Donald Trump's first full day in office. And in this video, we're going to look at several numerical and symbolic riddles connected to this special indoor inauguration at the Capitol Rotunda. We have a lot to cover today. Here's a quick look at the main ciphers of Gematria that we use to decode the events and staged rituals put on by the federal government, such as the indoor inauguration yesterday. And just a little look at what we'll be talking about today. Trump becoming the 47th president and how it connects to the number of the beast, 666. On the same day as the inauguration, January 20th, former Planned Parenthood president Cecile Richards passed away at the age of 67. And throughout this video, we'll look at how the name Richard is significant to Donald Trump, particularly through Richard I, a king of England from way back in the 12th century. So the same day that the president is sworn in, the Planned Parenthood president dies. And during Trump's first term, he installed several justices that led to the overturning of Roe v. Wade, the landmark abortion case. So what we'll also be looking at is how this all syncs up with the founder of Planned Parenthood, Margaret Sanger, who died on 9/6 of 66. The inauguration took place in Washington, and the football team from Washington this past weekend picked up their 666th victory over the Detroit Lions, so we'll talk about that. And on the topic of football, college football, Ohio State, a school that I've long documented being connected to the beast and the circle, this time 666 code. They defeated Notre Dame, a Catholic school, in the championship game, as Joe Biden, the Catholic president, left office. And then we'll also look at a riddle connected to Waco, Texas, which is the birthplace of Cecile Richards, and how it all syncs up with the 1993 Waco siege. So here's a quick look at Donald Trump and his new presidential portrait, which seems very similar to the mugshot he took back in August of last year. And when the president is sworn in, another president passes away, just at the age of 67 too, Cecile Richards. So let's get into some slides that we'll be covering. Again, a lot to go over today. Should have been maybe a super stream, but I don't think we'll go a full hour. We'll see. Now, of course, last year in April, we had the second of two Great American Total Solar Eclipses, which essentially stamped a cross over the United States, much like the bones crossed underneath the skull. And to really understand the numerology of this inauguration, it's imperative to understand the significance of Yale University. The two American eclipses were separated by exactly 82 lunar phases, also called a synodic month. Well, in 2023, Yale University turned 322 years old. And that anniversary was exactly 82 sidereal months, or lunar orbits, after the first eclipse. So here's a look at the date, October 9th of 2023. A massive date in America. And Yale Skull and Bones, a popular secret society. Not everybody involved in this story belongs to Yale, but a lot of them do. So it's important to understand this date, October 9th of 2023. We'll be talking about this a lot. On the date that Cecile Richards died, the former Planned Parenthood president, the Planned Parenthood founder, Margaret Sanger, had died 21,322 days before January 20th this year. This is a number that obviously has the 322, the skull and bones number, a number commonly associated with death. A lot of the people surrounding Trump throughout this election all connect to Yale University. His vice president, J.D. Vance, attended Yale. Vance is from Ohio State winning the championship the same night. Vivek Ramaswamy, who recently announced a gubernatorial run in the state of Ohio, formerly a member of Doge, also a graduate of Yale University. And perhaps Trump's biggest competitor throughout the Republican primaries was Ron DeSantis, who was yet another graduate of Yale, and I'm sure there's more. Now, during the inauguration, Trump did not put his hand on the Bible, which was being held by Melania. This is something that a lot of people have talked about, and it reminded me of all of the NASA astronauts who refused to swear on the Bible that they went to the moon. And that has a lot to do with this whole thing. Before we get there, the number 47 that's stamped on Trump. For those who watch a lot of my videos, this is nothing new. The word beast equals 47. So does Trump, which also equals 470 in the special Latin method. A huge number of government, which equals 47, just like president, White House, Republican, Democrat. Authority, also 47. Well, when Trump took office as the 47th president, it was a span of 470 days after Yale's 322nd anniversary. You may note that the name Donald sums to 322, whereas the name Donald Trump also has matching 2022 gematria with skull and bones when the ampersand is employed. Skull and Bones' nickname is the Brotherhood of Death, and when you add all four base ciphers, this has a gematria value of 666. Yesterday's inauguration was exactly 666 months after the fake moon landing, or the first one. Remember, NASA says they went to the moon 6 times with human beings. 6, the number of man. In the reverse alphabetic order, National Aeronautics and Space Administration sums to 666. But of course, that's not all. In the satanic cipher, which is constructed especially around the number 666, this is the value of satanic gematria, the phrase fake moon landing also has this 666 sum to it. With Fibonacci numbers, Apollo, the name of the craft, also sharing that 666. Now, the moon landing was in the year 1969, and with the 2 nines flipped upside down, we get another 666. But 1969 is the year, well, I'm sorry, not just the year of the moon landing, but is also the gematria of Donald John Trump, his full name, summing to 1969. In fact, also in reverse, the name Donald equals 1930. The number 1930 stands out because all 3 of the astronauts aboard the Apollo 11 spacecraft were all born in the year 1930. So, since his birth, Trump has been strongly connected by the numbers to the moon landing. And again, refusing to put his hand on the Bible, just like all of the NASA astronauts who allegedly went to the moon. None of them will put their hand on the Bible and swear they went. Just 2 days before this special 666 riddle, the football team from Washington, D.C., the Commanders, reminding us of the commander-in-chief who lives there, Washington won their 666th game of all time. And to do so, they defeated the Detroit Lions giving the Lions their 724th loss in franchise history. Well, in Latin Gematria, not only does the Brotherhood of Death equal 724, but so does Number of the Beast. So this is a big reason I was able to win a good chunk of money on this game. If you watched my previous videos, I've been breaking down this 666 riddle in the NFL. It's crazy because Washington's next game will be played against the Philadelphia Eagles. And Philadelphia is the original capital of the United States. Whether the Eagles win or lose, it will be their 666th. Which means if they win and lose in the Super Bowl, they'll have an all-time record of 666 and 666. This is a number relevant to Planned Parenthood, whose founder Margaret Sanger died on 9/6 of 66. You may recall that Donald Trump's grandmother, Elizabeth Christ, died on the date 6/6/66. But notice how Margaret Sanger, her death was also 666 sidereal months after the founding of Planned Parenthood, all the way back in 1916. Now, on the same day that the Commanders won that special game, this was 66 weeks and 6 days after Yale's 322nd anniversary. Earlier that day, the Chiefs picked up a huge win over the Houston Texans to advance in the playoffs as well. Commanders, Chiefs. It's all about the new commander-in-chief. The Chiefs defeated the team from Houston. With capital letters, the city of Houston equals 223. Houston Texans also with matching gematria with 666. Houston happens to be the birthplace of former President George H.W. Bush. And I guess he wasn't born in Houston. However, he did live there. And back in 2018, Bush Sr. died in the city of Houston, Texas. This game was played 320 weeks and 2 days after the death of Papa Bush, George H.W., for another 322. But what stood out even stronger to me is that this win gave the Chiefs their 572nd win in team history. And 572 is the Latin gematria of skull and bones. Now, if you were to reverse this number, you get 275. And 275 is the ordinal gematria of the number 666. So you see how the same few numbers are starting to repeat themselves over and over. Another important 572 was the age of Will Smith, the famous actor who slapped Chris Rock a few years ago at the Oscars. Will Smith was 20,572 days old. But wait a minute. What does Will Smith have to do with the inauguration? Well, back in the year 2021, Will Smith played the father of Venus and Serena Williams in a film called King Richard. King Richard was released on the date of a lunar eclipse. And that's important to understand because Donald Trump was also born on the date of a lunar eclipse. King Richard was released during Brown Lunation number 1223. 223, like the ordinal value of skull and crossbones. Measuring from the release of King Richard to Inauguration Day was 3 years, 2 months, and 2 days. And on the same day that the new president, whom the left has dubbed the king or dictator of the U.S., the former president named Richards passes away. Cecile Richards. And again, this is all synced up with Richard I of England. So we'll definitely get back to that because there's a lot more numbers worth discovering. But with all this 666 riddling going on, I want to touch on how this is all connected to the mathematics of the circle, or pi. Now, as I just pointed out, King Richard was released on the date of a lunar eclipse. Donald Trump, born on the date of a lunar eclipse. Well, later this year, we have a total lunar eclipse that falls on Pi Day, 314, 3.14, like the mathematics of the circle. Mathematical perfection is another phrase I like to point out, 666. In Sumerian, which is the cipher said to reveal the number of the beast, it's the alphabetic order times 6. The word perfection, also 666. So Trump becoming the 47th president. In reduction or Pythagorean gematria, the phrase the circle sums to 47. And when you look at the Freemasonic compass, can't be sure that I put it on this post here, but that compass is set to 47 degrees. And of course, the compass is used to draw the circle. So no doubt, there's a strong connection there. And this particular inauguration occurred under the dome of the United States Capitol. And consider how this inauguration was held on a date with 66 numerology. 1 plus 20 plus 20 plus 25 gives us a sum of 66. And this was the 60th presidential inauguration. So, inauguration 60 on a 66 date. The word inauguration also equals 60, just like Donald Trump, who is now the 47th president. And 47th has matching gematria with 666, the number 60. I always noted that Washington, D.C. has square number gematria of 2127. And this is interesting because if you look at 21 months and 27 days on a calendar, it's also usually 666 days. But not only does 666 equal 2127, but so does the city Waco, Texas, 2127, just like Washington, D.C. in the same cipher. Well, Waco, Texas was the birthplace of Cecile Richards. In the Sumerian method, Waco, Texas equals 666. It just keeps going, doesn't it? In relation to this being a riddle for King Richard, notice how Inauguration Day was 9,909 months after the death of King Richard, all the way back in the year 1199. Richard I of England was also known as Richard de Lyon, or Richard the Lionheart. And you have to appreciate that this is a riddle connected to Lionheart when it was the Detroit Lions that were defeated by the football team from Washington. Richard de Lyon equals 90 and 99 with the Old English classical spelling for another upside down 666. The name Cecile Richards matches Inauguration Day in both reduction ciphers. Notice how she died on January 20th, or 120. And 120 is essentially the birth numerology of Margaret Sanger, the Planned Parenthood founder, born on a 120 date. And I couldn't help but notice the remarkable amount of 120s that popped up in relation to abortion, which equals 120 with capital letters, female, Me Too, 666, all with gematria of 120. This date can also be written as 20/1. Abortion rights, Sanger, and the name Thomas E. Dobbs has double gematria of 201. Thomas E. Dobbs is the Mississippi health director whose name was on the court case that reversed Roe v. Wade back in 2022. 201 is also the ordinal gematria of 666. The last name Richards also is 275, which we looked at earlier. 666 equals 275, just like White House. Trump is now president 45 and 47. And when you add the numbers 45 and 47 as you spell them out, it's another 275. So 666, this number I've repeated all too often already in this video. Not only is this number made up of 3 sixes, but it's also the 36th triangular number. Every number 1 through 36 has this sum. Well, 360, which is the number of degrees in a circle, and again, we're talking about an inauguration specially held inside the circular rotunda. You know, rotund, a word used for circular objects. Cecile Richards equals 360 standard, and the last name Richards is 360 satanic. Waco is the place where David Koresh died, and notice how David Koresh has double gematria of 360, just like Cecile Richards. And also appreciate how David Koresh was born in Houston, Texas, the city that George Bush died in, and home to the Texans, who were defeated by the Chiefs this weekend. Skull and Bones, also 360 to go along with the 666 of Brotherhood of Death. I mentioned most of these earlier, but another big one is that when you write out 666, it sums to 2038. Well, the moon is an average of 238,000 miles across. And when Roe v. Wade was reversed, it was 20,380 days after the death of Margaret Sanger, who has that special 666 coding in the date of her death. So let's look at the number 116. Now, 116 is a very significant number to the occult. First of all, most evidently, is that this is simply an upside-down 911. But what a lot of people don't look at is the fact that 9/11, September 11th, is often considered to be the birthday of Jesus Christ. And the name Jesus has matching gematria with the number 116. 116 is the first number to sum to 985 like Jesus. And no question about it, the Jesus coding with Donald Trump is very real. Just look at how his name, Donald Trump, equals 589. the reversal of 985. The name Donald, also 119, which is like the date September 11th as it would be written internationally. So how is this number coded into this story about Cecile Richards from Waco, Texas? Well, she was the president of Planned Parenthood, and the word Parenthood equals 116. The founder of the organization died on the date leaving 116 days in the year, Margaret Sanger. When David Koresh was killed during the siege in Waco, it was on a date with numerology of 116. And in the alphabetic order, the name David Koresh equals 116. He led the Branch Davidians. The word branch equals 116. And a lot of them were killed during the siege. The word siege has double values of 116. Well, measuring from the date of the Waco siege to the death of Cecile Richards is a span of 11,600 days. 116, with a pair of zeros to accentuate the numbers before it. David Koresh was killed on the 19th of April, or 19/4. Notice how the name Richard I equals 194. But let's talk about the book of Revelation, which of course reveals the number of the beast. But the book of Revelation was once closely studied by David Koresh, as shown right here in the first paragraph of his Wikipedia page. Revelation 19:4 has ordinal gematria of 1160. Now, as always, this is the King James edition of the Bible, which is also the Masonic Bible. There's only one other verse in the book of Revelation that sums to 1160 in ordinal. And it just happens to be the verse that leaves 116 remaining in the Bible. Trump's first full day in office, today, is the 1160th day since the release of the film King Richard. Cecile Richards died 51,016 days after William Russell. William Huntington Russell is one of two founders and the primary one of the Skull and Bones Secret Society. But there's also a strong 9/11 riddle here as well. And this all connects to the number 156. Not only is 9/11 the 156th prime number, but 156 is also the 119th composite number. So to see these numbers paired together is quite common. In fact, 1 hour and 16 minutes on a clock is 156 minutes. So 116 and 156 are also connected through time. Well, Cecile Richards died 156 days after David Koresh's birthday. And when David Koresh died, it was exactly 1,056 weeks after the Roe v. Wade ruling back in 1973. And Koresh died on the date of the Waco siege, which equals 156. All in relation to the inauguration in Washington, which equals 156. And of course, David Koresh himself, a massive Jesus riddle. This man was reportedly 33 years old when he died, just like the age of Jesus on the cross. And the number 33 equals 156 ordinal, matching 666 and 666s. Donald J. Trump, another important 1056. In relation to all of this 666 coding, though, it is worth pointing out that this also relates to the Jesuit order. And again, we have a Catholic president, Joe Biden, paving the way for a Christian president in Donald Trump. However, Donald Trump attended Fordham University, and he even enrolled in the year 1964. The year 1964, that's the 1,666th composite number. Remember, 1964 is also the year that Trump's competitors, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, were born. Well, the reason I point this out is that Fordham University is a Jesuit institution. The current head of the Catholic Church is the first Jesuit pope. Well, if you measure from the original founding of the Jesuit order back in 1534 to the date January 24th, which is coming up in just 3 more days, the Jesuit order turns 6,066 lunar phases old. So it really does all come together this week for this significant code. Cecile Richards was born 4,049 days after Donald Trump. And then she became the president of Planned Parenthood of America, which has these same digits, 449, in reverse. Well, 449 is the 87th prime number. David Koresh died 87 days before Cecile Richards' birthday, back in 1993. And of course, 93, a huge number for Christianity. God's son equals 93, just like in Nazareth, where they said he was from. Christianity, also 930 in the Sumerian method. Crucifix, another 93. But back to this number 87, because David Koresh was not born with this name. He changed it so he fit in with the Davidians very well. His birth name is actually Vernon Wayne Howell, which has reduction gematria of 87. The name Howell on its own, also 87, just like Waco Siege in Ordinal. Margaret Sanger has matching 87 gematria with female. Again, dead 87 days before Cecile's birthday. So now let's look more at this Planned Parenthood riddle with skull and bones. Now, I've done work on this in the past. I'm not sure if I ever really made a video on it. But it's important to understand, Margaret Sanger is not just one person who was very hateful and wanted to kill babies. She was the figurehead of a larger organization that is very concerned with population control. This woman is heavily coded with the numbers of the Skull and Bones Society, which is, of course, a symbol of death. And just as an aside, I thought it was pretty funny that one of the big stories about the inauguration was the reversal of the TikTok ban. And you have to appreciate that TikTok ban has double gematria of 322. And again, Inauguration Day, back to the death of Margaret Sanger, had a 322 in it. Now, there were a couple of cases, not just Roe v. Wade, that made abortion legal at a federal level. Back in 1992, Roe v. Wade was cemented in the Supreme Court in a case called Planned Parenthood versus Casey, which was decided in the year 1992. So essentially, this is the second of two landmark Supreme Court rulings that legalized abortion, with, again, Roe v. Wade being the first. Planned Parenthood v. Casey was exactly 1,699 weeks before Inauguration Day. This is the Latin value of New Haven, which is home to the Skull and Bones Society. And again, this case was decided in the year 1992. The phrase inauguration of Donald Trump equals 1992 in standard, and Washington, D.C. equals 992 in the same method. Inauguration Day was 18,992 days after Roe v. Wade was decided. Planned Parenthood Federation of America, Inc., the abortion specialist's full name, sums to 1105 and 1122, matching Skull and Crossbones and Brotherhood of Death. Inauguration Day was exactly 41 weeks after the Second Great American Eclipse, and the phrase Skull and Bones equals 41. Before I talk about the eclipse here, just look at this. The name Margaret Sanger, the figurehead for the giant abortion clinic, sums to 527. With capital letters, Planned Parenthood of America is 527. And this is certainly no mistake. Skull and Bones equals 527. The same digits as you get when you write out and. Furthermore, Sanger was born on the 14th of September, 14/9. This is the ordinal value of Skull and Bones, 149. So, when you write out Planned Parenthood of America, you get the 192nd prime number, while Planned Parenthood on its own equals 1,092. And this is the next huge number, 192. The Skull and Bones Society was founded in 1832. Measuring from the first day of that year to the Great American Eclipse last year was 192 years. And this was the second eclipse in less than a decade. Both second and eclipse equals 192. In ordinal, Yale's Skull and Bones equals 192. So does Secret Society and Skull and Bones with capital letters. When Roe v. Wade was decided in 1973, Cecile Richards was exactly 192 lunar phases old for that date. Now, on that same day, David Koresh, who died in her hometown, was exactly 701 weeks old. And the name David Koresh equals 701. Now, this 71, I want to talk about this a little bit first, because this number is connected to the college football game that just took place last night with Ohio State toppling Notre Dame and the Catholic Church that burned in France, essentially. So when you run Trump's age for the inauguration yesterday, notice how his age ends with the number 710. This is actually important because in satanic gematria, Donald John Trump equals 710. The coach of Ohio State won the national championship last night, and now he has a record of 70-10. Ryan Day was born on March 12th of 78. which means he has 17117 in his age. So just like he goes 70 and 10, the digits 1 and 7 were the only ones in his age. The 117 stands out in particular. Notice how Buckeye equals 117. That's the nickname for Ohio. The state of Ohio has Gematria of 117. In fact, Buckeyes equals 117, I believe. In some cipher, maybe not. I don't know what I was smoking yesterday, but I don't see it there. But check out the full name. Ryan Patrick Day. The coach of the Ohio State Buccaneers, his full name equals 1189. This matches the new president, Donald J. Trump, 1189. This is also a significant number for Richard I of England, who began his reign in the year 1189. The name Ryan Day also sums to 88, which matches Trump. Trump has the 88 in ordinal. When you write out Ohio State, it also equals 50 and 112, which are the numbers found in Donald. Donald equals 50 and 112. These are both also numbers of the circle. And I explained earlier how this inauguration was all synced up with the numerology of the circle and pi, particularly 666. The state of Ohio also equals 47. Perfect for President 47, Donald Trump, who has this number twice in his gematria. But I just love how Ryan Day, it doesn't have his birthday on this page for some reason, but Ryan Day was born in, 79. No way they changed it. Wow. I would swear on a Catholic Bible that this said 78 yesterday. And I made note of this. Maybe I'm going crazy. Maybe I entered a new Mandela universe. But I'm so positive this said 78 yesterday. I mean, come on. Don't do me like this, Google. I don't know. It's not worth it to look this up today, but the reason I pointed this out to myself was because the other coach of the game for Notre Dame, Marcus Freeman, he was born on the very first day of Brown lunation number 780. So I made note of that because Ryan Day said to be born in 78. Doesn't really matter. That was a very minor part of this anyway. But it's just interesting that the 71 that connected Ryan Day to all of this was also found in David Koresh. We'll come back to this 233 in the next post. The founder of Planned Parenthood, though, she also has a full name. Her full name matches the Brotherhood of Death, a super match in the base ciphers. And the big number here is 220. Donald John Trump has the 220. And once again, Trump took the White House 220 days after his birthday. Cecile Richards' home of Waco, Texas, has matching 220 gematria with the word siege. And Cecile is the daughter of another famous Richards, Ann Richards, who was the 45th governor of Texas. Trump, of course, also the 45th president. Ann Richards died 220 months ago. So that was kind of interesting. But the number 22 connects to Planned Parenthood of America, which sums to the 22nd triangular number, just like the name Sanger, its founder. And the name Sanger also has the 223 Gematria, which is appropriate because her death was 18,223 days after she founded Planned Parenthood. 223 like population control in reverse. This ceremony held at the U.S. Capitol Rotunda, which equals 223. And in regards to the name Rotunda, we had the death of a major pro wrestler a couple of years ago, and his real last name was Rotunda. And if you saw my video on Bray Wyatt, you would have seen that it was all connected to the Skull and Bones code, the number 223. I'll try to remember to link that video down below after I finish this one. But this all connects all too well. When Cecile Richards died, she was 67 years old. Her death fell exactly 67 weeks after the 322nd anniversary of Yale. This is a huge number connected to the female code. Female equals 67, just like me too. Remember, the moon is a symbol of water, which equals 67. Water, birthing, it's all one and the same. But 67 is the 19th prime number, and Cecile was 67 years and 190 days old. 190, matching the gematria of her pack supermajority, which is what it's called, 190 ordinal. Cecile was exactly 109 weeks older than David Koresh. And then Koresh went on to die on the 109th day of the year. Cecile's gubernatorial mother, Ann Richards, has 109 gematria. And 109 is a lot like October 9th, which is the anniversary for Yale University. All right, so let's start to finally wrap this up here. And to do so, I want to focus again on Richard I of England. You also got to like how Richard I was born in 57. Cecile Richards was also born in 57. In fact, her birthday, 15/7. Richard the Lionheart, his nickname, Richard Coeur de Lion, equals 972 in Sumerian. And when Donald Trump became the president for the second time, he was 972 lunar phases old. Didn't expect this connection, but it was 9,720 sidereal months. From Richard I's kinghood to the founding of Planned Parenthood. Richard I was the king for 9 years, 7 months, and 3 days. And that's the gematria of Planned Parenthood of America. 973. Remember, this was the brown lunation number for the 9/11 attacks as well. I think one of the things I should show first, however, is this. And strike on me for not pointing this out early in the video, because I think this is important. Consider that this is called Planned Parenthood, which has the initials PP, which are in its logo, PP. And I just talked about this a couple of days ago because we had the major fires that began in Pacific Palisades, or PP. And that happened in LA. Well, the inauguration was 13 days after the fires in LA began. But think about this, right? 1616, the letter P. P is the 16th letter, right? When you write out the number 47 in standard gematria, it equals 1616. And it's like, really? The former Planned Parenthood president dies on the same day that president number 47 gets sworn in? Inauguration Day was 301,616 days after King Richard died. So you have the same 4 digits, 1616, in that measurement. And again, he became the king in 1189, matching Donald J. Trump. Donald J. Trump also equals 148 in the alphabetic order. Richard I of England, also 148 ordinal. And look how old Richard I would have been. 10,408 months old. They called him Lionheart, which equals 1460 in square numbers. Richard I, also 146 in reverse. With capital letters, Richard I has matching 138 gematria with Donald Trump, 138. And Trump was born on the 14th of June, 14/6, matching Richard I in reverse. But we're not done. The name Richard in the Latin cipher equals 185. When Richard I died, he was 15,185 days old. This is the ordinal gematria of Donald John Trump and World Trade Center, 185. And now he's back in the White House. Both White House and the White House equal 185. When Roe v. Wade was overturned a few years ago, it was 18,050 days after the original decision. And would you believe the motto of Planned Parenthood? It says, care, no matter what. And yes, that including murdering your baby. No matter what it takes, we're going to care for you. But of course, they're going to care for your financial situation more than the life in your womb. But never mind that. The phrase, care no matter what, equals 185. So it's just wild how it lines up. Richard was also the king for 3,503 days. And I know we're really going to the well here for these finds, but look at this. 3,503 is composite number 3,013. 3,013 is the gematria of Planned Parenthood. Care, no matter what. Margaret Higgins Sanger equals 3,130, matching Cecile Richards, the president who just died. Lionheart also with the 313, all circling back to the biblical spelling of the number of the beast. 636 equals 313. It's just crazy what we're looking at. So, the last thing I'll point out before I look at my last few notes here for this video is the number 233. Now, I hope I don't have to re-educate too many people here, but it's important to understand this number 1331, the ultimate eclipse number. I'm not going to go through all of this, but for many, many years now, I've been documenting this number and the eclipse code. Now, isn't it interesting that this woman who died on the same day as the inauguration was born 133 months and 1 day after Donald Trump? This points to the 1331 code with eclipses, and we mentioned the eclipse code earlier. In the alphabetic order, 1331 equals 233. And I know you wouldn't normally write numbers out like this, but I guarantee you there's relevance here. With capital letters, the number 13 also equals 233. And 233 is the 13th Fibonacci number. So I don't think it's a coincidence that 13 and its reversal 31 sum to 233, right? In the alphabetic order, United States capital equals 233. When Yale had its special anniversary a couple years ago, it was exactly 230 years and 3 weeks after construction on the U.S. Capitol began. The name David Koresh, also 233, which I liked. Margaret Sanger died 2,330 days before Roe v. Wade was decided. Cecile Richards was born 2 years and 33 days before David Koresh, whose name has the 233. The two landmark Supreme Court cases that legalized abortion were separated by 233 months. Yesterday, they said the star of the inauguration was Barron Trump. Barron Trump, this modern-day giant, 6'7". Are we going to see this guy become a politician? It does feel like they're kind of massaging him for a future in office. He's certainly tall enough to do it. Can't say I've ever heard the kid speak. I don't know if he's accomplished a damn thing in his life. But for some reason, they love this guy. As someone who stands under 5'8", I always marvel at how easy it is for tall guys to get this much love, but I digress. This video isn't about my insecurities as a short guy. I'm not even that short. Anyway, look at Barron Trump's age for the inauguration day. He was exactly 233 lunations old when his dad retook the White House. And it all happened within the confines of the United States Capitol. And 4 years ago, it was the U.S. Capitol that Trump supporters were let into by various authorities and police. So this Capitol riddle has been strong with Trump for a long time. Don't forget, United States Capitol sums to the 16th Fibonacci number. 987. And it was January 6th, or 1/6, when all those supporters reached the Capitol. All right, guys. How about this? When the U.S. Capitol first opened... Nah, hang on a minute, guys. All right. We are officially in overtime in this video, because I want to look at a few of my notes. I'm just glancing at the chat here. And yeah, I'm still taller than Joe Rogan, which, hey, that means a lot. And technically, I'm 5'7" 3/4 ever since I shaved my head. But that's not 5'7" 3/4. That's 5'9". All right. And I live in Wisconsin, where we're actually a little bit taller than the national average here in this state. If I moved down south into Illinois, I would probably be like taller than average. It seems like everyone down there is short. I don't know what it is. All right, so let's look at the U.S. Capitol, because this is a very symbolic building. And It was designated as a historical landmark back in 1960. Yeah, I mean, if everyone just wants to list their hideout in the chat, go right ahead. I have nothing wrong with that. You know, being short forced me to look inward and harness my mental powers. That's how I look at it. I was okay at baseball, but I was never going to make it. Okay, anyway. So this date here is pretty interesting, this designation of the capital. December 19th of 1960. When you measure back to the birthday of Donald Trump, you get 5,303 days. The word president equals 533. And this is a number I always had appreciation for, because this is 13 times the 13th prime number. Trump is now president 47, which, here's another find that should have been mentioned earlier. This matches Revelation. And it happened on a date with 66 numerology. 66 also matches Revelation and 47, the number 149 and 49. So President 47, sworn in on a 66 date, 666 months after the moon landing. Oh, the Capitol Rotunda. This date that the Rotunda was designated as a historical landmark, it was during Brown Lunation 470. So if someone is more organized than I am, put this near the top of your video. Because it was the second day of Lunation 470 is when the Capitol was designated. And now President 47 sworn in under the dome. Barron Trump is not a good athlete. I can guarantee you that. You can tell by the way he waves. Thanks for the kind words, everyone. I'm trying to do my best. And, sometimes my videos aren't as well organized as I'd like them to be. But with the amount of information I'm trying to pack in these videos in just 1 or 2 days, it is pretty difficult. Yeah, he's definitely introverted. He definitely grew up on Minecraft and that stuff. But when I see Barron Trump waving, it's just like, oh, he's a lot like his dad in that sense, I think. Where he's probably not terribly coordinated, but he's got something going on. I mean, he kind of looks like he might be sharp. For a tall guy, anyway. I'm wondering what his birth card is. Because he was born on March 20th, right around the solstice. The birth card for March 20th is the 3 of Diamonds. So the 3 of Diamonds, the undecided values card, huh? Watching Barron Trump, I feel like he's kind of going along with it. You can tell like he's not committed to the whole political thing yet. Dude, everyone was a good athlete in the 60s. So that doesn't count. I don't care if Trump was a good athlete. I mean, have you seen the football players who were playing pro ball back in the 60s? They weren't the best. So, the 3 of Diamonds is considered one of the most difficult life paths, especially when it's a woman. Indecision in values, in relationships. A natural interest in metaphysics should be cultivated if they are to know more peace. They always know what is right and wrong, though sometimes they try to ignore what they know. So, to me, this doesn't scream politician, right? This website is knowyourdestinycards.com, by the way. It's just this phrase, know your destiny cards. I'll put a link in the chat. You know, I don't typically talk about this layer of mysticism, you know, tarot and cards and whatnot, but I'm always blown away by what I see in here. I'm convinced there's truth in this. So, all right, they have more satisfaction in business when they can travel or do various things. There's usually someone younger for whom they must care for. It says their later life can be disappointing unless they've developed their spiritual side. So what I see with Barron is that he's at this point right now, right? I mean, he just got this huge ovation. People seem to love him. He's at a fork in the road now. Am I going to go forward with something where I chase politics? But given his birth card here, he might regret that choice later in life. I was born in the year 85, yes. And my birth card is a King of Hearts, June 4th. So my business, or no, it's not the King of Hearts, it's the King of Diamonds. The King of Diamonds, this always interested me too, because it's the businessman's card. And, you know, here I am, the owner of Gematrinator 85 now. And this is the master of values. And I know many of you don't know me personally, but I do have a very, very strong focus on my values in life. You know, I didn't try to sell out for Gematria. I taught it for 6 years before I turned it into a business. It's very important to me. And there's other people in the community who don't have great values. So that's always been a focus of mine. Because, you know, I never ask people to trust me. I just hope that, you know, they see that I'm sharing the truth. That's the thing about numerology. That's what I love about it, is that I can't lie about what I'm doing, you know? Anyways, it says he can do very well in any business pursuit, which has been my experience. These people always do better as heads of their own business. And, you know, even when I was working for GE, I knew I had to work for myself one day. They can be very mercenary when it comes to money, which means I'm a cheap ass. And that's true. But they don't have to be. Oh, I missed that line. This is the only one-eyed king in the deck, which means they tend to see everything from their own point of view exclusive of others. It couldn't be more true with me, man. Like, I came into Gematria and I saw what other people were saying, but I also saw this other layer that I wanted to share, and I couldn't just put it aside without doing that. This can make him seem very stubborn and one-sided, absolutely. But, you know, all of them know what's real value, and they follow their knowing instead of their fears, which I didn't always do at first. And they can be the most respectable people in the business world. Well, hopefully, that's the case. They have good marriage karma. Well, let's scratch this last paragraph. Just pretend it doesn't exist. They are very creative and can make huge amounts of money by using this gift, blah, blah, blah. So this is cool, right? I mean, it was me to a T, essentially. Derek is very cheap. That's true. And I gotta be cheap. I'm making a lot less money with Gematrinator than I was with GE. And when I was working with GE, I was just saving as much money as I could so I could focus on this, you know? That's been the focus. So Cody dropped in, and shout out to him, saying he's a jack of clubs. So let's look at the jack of clubs for Cody. Hopefully a lot of you are familiar with him and our videos that we've been doing together. And Cody has the mentally creative card. I love this already. Cody has a very unique way of thinking creatively. He makes connections that I skip over more often than I make that he misses. He's very good at taking a step back and looking at the grand scheme of things, whereas you guys know me, I'm drilled down in the numbers, right? Creative or dishonest, which is which? Those who are the most creative can also be the dishonest and vice versa. So maybe Cody's had some battles with this in the past where he's had the opportunity to profit off of lies and had to choose, right? Here's a card of mental and financial creativity, and these people are no lazy bones. Another thing, too, is that you'll find a lot about cryptocurrency on Cody's channel. And so there's a financial creativity in with cryptocurrency and using numerology to understand the flow. Their brilliant minds are far ahead of the common person in society. Let's go. The Aquarian Age, okay. Member of the royal family, just like my King of Diamonds. They dislike pettiness and tend to be somewhat impatient with the failings of others. Now, Cody he's had streams where he lets people talk who seem petty. Just recently, I remember a couple where there was a little disagreement on his stream. But that's not what we're about, right? There's no pettiness in the videos, and when we work together, everything's cool. And they have to be in a position that allows their minds to explore. On the negative side, they can be irresponsible and in some cases dishonest. Well, maybe we'll get Cody's girlfriend on the line one day to talk about that. No, I kidding. They can see things from so many levels that nothing is really wrong. It's just another way of looking at things. And this perfectly encapsulates Cody's attitude. You know, he's talking about all this number of the beast and 666 stuff with the inauguration, but he's also not out here telling people to be scared of it, because this symbolism goes two ways. So it's just awesome, this birth card stuff. And again, if you guys want to check yours out, it's really cool. Let's see, was it the... The Seven of Clubs is an interesting one. There's challenges turning negativity into accomplishment, and I'll let you look at these birthdays and figure out what's going on there. But, I mean, these cards always tell the story. It's from a mystical perspective. So, again, I'll put the link down below in the description for this video as well, and not just the chat if you want to see more. Didn't mean to get too sidetracked with this, but... yeah, there's cool stuff here. All right, guys, so with all that out of the way, I think I'm going to end the video there. Thanks for everybody for joining in, whether you're watching live or archived. It's nice to see an uptick in views lately, especially live views, as this knowledge becomes more and more undeniable every day, especially when they put forth incredible beastly riddles like the one we saw play out yesterday. And thus begins what will certainly be a fascinating 4 years of Trump presidency, assuming he makes it the entire way, which I think he will. You know, again, I'm not the negative Nancy type of YouTuber. I try to stay neutral on topics of the grand world stage, because while I do believe that a lot of our government and reality is steeped in conspiracy, there is a battle going on, and it's happening at many levels. And we can only do so much. There comes a point where you do have to put faith in God to put certain things in working order. So hopefully everyone can do that. This next 4 years should be a period of greater prosperity than the last 4 as we continue to climb out. And when you hear things about tariffs and things like that, you know, the way I see it, it's a long-term investment that hopefully we can purchase things from inside the country again. Not to make it political, but, you know, focus on the long term and things should pan out for you. All right, everyone. Peace, love, God bless. Thanks again for all the love and support. We'll talk to you next time. See ya.